Hello guys, we were driving to a tree job in Tualatin today, and en route to the job I saw this, and I decided on our way back from the job we'd stop and take some pictures and make a video of this. Now this is the city of Tualatin, and I'm not picking on Tualatin any more than any other city. I see this thing going on in Wilsonville, where Good News Tree Service is based. It's in Tualatin, it's in Sherwood, city of Portland, city of Seattle, and numerous other cities all over the world probably. But certainly in the area where I work, we see this kind of ignorance and stupidity going on. I'm gonna call it for exactly what it is. You know, after 50 years working with trees, 35 years in the business, and many years as an arborist, certified arborist, owner of a company, I've been through hundreds of storms. I've taken down thousands of trees, tens of thousands of trees. I have seen anything and everything. And this is a perfect example of city stupidity. And this is a strong word, but I'm going to call it for what it is. Take a look at this. This is a raywood ash, and we had a windstorm recently. This tree was wind thrown. We have this, Jared, if you pan around, you look straight to the south across the street, totally open. So the southern winds, southern and southwestern winds come from that area and are what blows over a lot of these trees. This is where most of our tree damage comes, is from southern and southwesterly winds. And it's literally uprooted, and it has crashed through the fence and landed on these people's house. Kind of crunched their gutter. I don't know, it's probably done some damage to the roof. It's also actually landed up on the second story, although it doesn't look like it's done much damage up there. But the point I want to make is this subdivision was probably put in about 10 or 12 years ago. This tree is about 10 or 12, 15 years old, I don't know, something like that. And this planting strip here is about 5 feet wide. I measured it right down here between the curb and the sidewalk, 5 foot wide. Now, the point I want to make is this. All over the place, cities are suggesting and or mandating, are putting out and publishing on their city websites recommended tree planting lists, including what size trees can go into how wide of a planting strip. City of Seattle probably has one of the most comprehensive lists. So does the city of Portland, not as comprehensive as the city of Seattle, but they have literally pages with dozens and dozens and dozens of trees of what you can plant in a planting strip. Now, and they tell you how wide of a planting strip. Recently, the city that I live in and my tree service is based in, the city of Wilsonville, where I've lived for 36 years, had a tree service for 35 years, they have updated their tree planting list because the previous list was a joke by and large. And I've been taking down for decades trees that were misplanted or misrecommended by the city arborists of that era, and they have caused all kinds of damage. They've uprooted, they've lifted sidewalks, they've destroyed plumbing, they've fallen on houses, all because of city bureaucrats who would not listen to experts like me or other arborists who are experts, consulting arborists, people that have years and decades of experience as well as academic training. They will not listen to us. We have tried, and I've talked to other arborists, I've talked to consulting arborists, I've talked to other, even city arborists, city foresters, who their own departments don't listen to them. I was talking to, well, I won't mention any names, but anyway. And so here, this is the city of Tualatin. And again, this raywood ash will get to be, you know, I've seen raywood ashes in our area that are, 60 feet tall and this big around. This is a juvenile tree. And the reason it is folly, absolute folly, to plant a tree of this size in such a narrow planting strip is, come here, take a look at this. The roots are growing up against the curb. There are no roots growing underneath the curb. That curb goes down about, I don't know, probably at least 24 inches. Most of the supporting roots are in the top 12 inches of the soil. Those roots cannot go laterally and establish a good anchoring system for this tree. It is those anchor roots, those big roots, not these little hair roots, not these feeder roots, but the big roots that go laterally, horizontally in all directions, and they may only be 12 inches deep, but there's enough of them and they're under enough soil that they will protect a tree in most cases from a wind that will be blowing out of the southwest or south. But because this tree was not able to put out lateral roots, because there is a barrier, a concrete barrier here, a curb that goes down about that deep or so, the roots couldn't go this way. So there was nothing to hold this tree. And that's why it's actually folly to plant a large tree in a narrow area. There's not enough soil for these trees to anchor their roots down into in this narrow little strip. Not only that, I've seen this again and again with the Raywood ashes especially, and other trees too. They need more soil so that they can get more moisture and more minerals and other nutrients from the soil. And when there's such a small soil volume here, as we see, it's long and narrow, but the roots can't go that way either because there's a sidewalk there. The sidewalk is about 4 inches thick, and underneath that is compacted gravel that's another few inches thick that's compacted. So and studies have been done, and we have seen it again and again. The roots have very, very little capacity to push through compacted gravel. It's like roots trying to push through a brick. Okay, maybe not quite that compacted, but it's similar. Look at what's underneath there, or consider underneath that sidewalk to be a brick as opposed to natural soil would be like a sponge. Obviously a sponge is much more permeable. It's something that the roots can get through. But when you have a brick, it's somewhat impermeable, and the roots have a very difficult time, if not impossible, to get through there, unless there's a crack or something. And so the roots can't go that way either. And so this poor tree, there has no supporting roots, very few. So it was sitting duck for the wind to come and blow it over, as we see here. Now I take, as an expert arborist in these areas, doing this for decades, I take great exception with these cities, and who continue to plant or mandate or suggest or recommend that builders, developers, or whoever, or the city themselves, plant trees like this in these narrow areas. This is, you could plant a small tree like a dogwood or a Japanese maple or some things like that, and that would be all right, because that's not going to get to be 30, 40 feet tall and then blow over and cause damage. So you could still get small trees, or you could get trees in here, but not these big trees. And it's, the whole row of these trees, it's ridiculous. And again, as I started to say earlier, I take strong exception with the cities that continue to do this. It's foolishness. A wise man once said, only a fool stumbles over the same stone twice. And so here we have, and I'll just pick on the city of Wilsonville, because right now I don't care. They call themselves Tree City USA, but they will not listen to me. And they keep making the same mistakes. I've offered my services, and now I'm going public with this. I've offered my services to the tree department, to the planning department, and to the city council. And they will not listen, and they keep making these mistakes. And recently, within the last 2 years, the city of Wilsonville has, quote unquote, updated its tree list, its recommended tree planting list. So I went through that list, and I go like, and they didn't consult me. I went through that list and I go like, egads, there were some good recommendations on the list, smaller trees in smaller areas, but they were making a lot of the same foolish, ridiculous, stupid mistakes of the past. Give you a case in point. They still put down pin oaks. They get within 30, 40 years, if they're irrigated, get to be this big around. On that list, they still have pin oak, and they recommend a pin oak being planted in a 6-foot planting strip. That's just slightly wider than this planting strip here. I've taken down pin oaks in these kind of areas in Wilsonville that are 3 feet in diameter and they're literally, if you put a pin oak here, within 20, 30 years, 25, 30 years, it will be clear out to here and it will be lifting the sidewalk, if there's a sidewalk there, or if the sidewalk's there, it will be lifting the sidewalk and causing all kinds of problems. Not to mention the fact, if it's open to the wind, it could blow over. And we do see pin oaks blow over. On the Charbonneau Golf Course, where I've been the arborist for the last 26 years, I have seen pin oaks blow over on more than one occasion, thanks to both eastern winds, but mostly south and southwestern winds when you get super saturated soils. Also in the city of Wilsonville, they still have the flowering plum as a street tree, which is ridiculous. Again, I could go down the list. I was so fed up with this list that I went and made my own list. I have my own list of recommended trees, and I do not, on my list, I do not recommend the size of a planting strip. That's going to be a case-by-case situation. I think when you plant trees in a narrow area, you need to get an arborist who knows his stuff or her stuff, and they need to find the tree that will fit that situation and give the person what they're looking for in a tree, the property owner. Again, it's about planting the right tree in the right place so that that tree will be there for 40, 50, 60, 100 years. We've got to think 20, 40, 50, 100 years down the road so that this kind of nonsense doesn't happen in a perfectly good tree. This wasn't the tree's fault. This is human error. So anyway, I'm the tree evangelist and I'm preaching. I preach the gospel. You need to repent and be saved and come to Jesus and read your Bible. But I also preach the good news of planting the right tree in the right place so that it will help the environment, help us keep our planet green, keep the oxygen fresh, because these trees produce, one of these trees will produce enough oxygen for several people per day. So we need the trees. They're cutting down too many trees all over the world. So yeah, this is the tree evangelist saying, guys, let's not keep making the same mistakes over and over again, causing damage, causing destruction, and wasting people's money on top of a good tree being lost. I hope that somebody listening to this will take this seriously, somebody who's in a position of responsibility and authority, and that maybe we can turn the tide in the favor of the planet, the trees, and not wasting valuable resources on the part of cities and other people planting wrong trees in the wrong place. All right, that's my spiel for the day. Onward and upward. God bless you all.